Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. When I was 25 years old, I was driving home from work one night. I lived in Los Angeles at the time and was driving on Sunset Boulevard, heading west towards my apartment in Brentwood. For those unfamiliar with the area, there's an expansive section of Sunset near UCLA that is very curvy. It's 2 lanes on either side with no shoulder. It was 8:30 on a Saturday night, so there was some traffic. As I was driving, about 50 feet in front of me, I saw a car, but I was looking at the passenger door. A car had spun out of control and was now perpendicular in my lane. I didn't have time to stop. I glanced to my right and saw a car next to me, so I had nowhere to go. Instinctively, I turned my car all the way to the right anyway. Once I cleared the first car, I spun the wheel all the way to the left, still trying to avoid the second car. While all this was happening, I remembered a moment with my mom at Disneyland when I was 3 years old. This wasn't a memory I'd ever consciously had before. I vaguely remember parts of that trip, but not this specific moment. That's when I realized my life was flashing before my eyes, and I was going to die. I had never been so sure of anything. Every part of me knew I was about to die. I started screaming. To this day, I don't know if I vocalized anything or if it was all in my head. I yelled, "No! No! This isn't fair! I'm not done yet!" All the while, I was swerving all over Sunset Boulevard. Suddenly, my car stopped, and I found myself perpendicular in the opposing lane of traffic. I looked around, and there wasn't a single car anywhere. It was as if everything had been wiped clean. I put my car in reverse and drove home. I didn't see a single car for the rest of the way. I was only 5 minutes away from home at that point, but Sunset Boulevard on a Saturday night was completely empty. When I arrived at my apartment, I parked on the street and didn't see one person. As I walked inside, I came to the conclusion that I had died. Because I had said no, I believed I was stuck in some sort of limbo. I wanted my roommate to be home more than anything, but she wasn't. I called one of my best friends and said, "I need to ask you some questions. Please just answer me, and I'll explain after." I asked her my name, my age, what city we lived in, and the date. Naturally, she was very alarmed. I explained to her that I thought I was dead and wasn't sure if I was really on the phone with her. She tried to convince me I was alive and that everything was okay. But there was no way, mathematically, that I could have escaped that situation. There was nowhere for the car on the right to go. This moment has haunted me my whole life. There have been times I've questioned my existence, wondering if my life since then has been a very detailed death trip and that I'm actually lying on Sunset Boulevard, bleeding out. After many years of meditation, spiritual practice, and exploring quantum physics, I sometimes wonder what life I jumped into. I have an 18-month-old baby girl, and part of our routine is every Monday we walk from our flat to a park and back via a different route through another park, because she likes to look at the cherry blossoms. We've done this every single Monday for about 13 months now. I never change the route, and it's roughly the same time every week. We took off, got to the first park, and all was okay, but for some strange reason, I felt like I was in a panic. My heart rate was high, I felt a bit anxious, and I didn't really want to stay, but my daughter was having a good time. Eventually, I realized there was no one else in this park, just us. It's usually quite full, so I thought that must be it. We started our walk home, taking our usual route through the second park with the cherry blossoms. I know this route like the back of my hand. We crossed at a set of lights, then took the first right and headed up the hill to the park. Not a complicated route. I was walking with my head down when I suddenly realized I had no idea where I was. I'd never seen this road before. I've lived in this city for 16 years, and it felt completely off. There were no cars, no leaves, every road here is usually covered in them, and no wind. It was deadly silent. I stopped and turned to walk back the way I came, presuming somehow I'd messed up the route. Suddenly, a car drove past with a woman wearing a brown jacket, a hat, and black sunglasses. I thought, well, I'll just keep going. We'll end up at the park somehow. Then another red car passed by. Same woman, same jacket, hat, and sunglasses. The car was slightly different. I thought that was bizarre. Then it happened again. Red car. Woman in a brown jacket with a hat and glasses. I picked up the pace and tried to go down a different street, but something felt really wrong about going that way. So I kept going straight, and after about 20 minutes of walking, I reached the end of the street and found myself on the road that leads to the park I was aiming for. Suddenly, all the noises, leaves, and cars were back. I went to the park, checked my phone, and it was 2 p.m. I'd left the first park at 10:45 a.m. It takes 25 minutes to get from that park to the second one. I couldn't have been walking for more than 20 minutes down that street. The following day, I woke up early for work and couldn't stop thinking about that road. So I left earlier and drove my car to try and find it. I couldn't. I tried 2 different ways, where I entered and where I exited, and the routes I ended up on were not that road I walked down. I just can't work it out. I couldn't sleep for 2 days, thinking about it. Now I can't stop seeing the face of the woman in the brown jacket, but I don't remember ever actually acknowledging what she looked like at the time. My daughter got a book for Christmas. It's this really sweet little book that plays the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Each page has some artwork on it. The first page has 4 ducks floating down the same stream, 3 yellow ducklings, and 1 brown duck. The ducks are all facing the same way. This is important because my daughter is 1, so right now, she loves counting and repetition. Every time we see the ducks, she points to them and I count them out loud. I've done this at least 100 times already. She loves this book and won't leave it alone. My husband has also read it to her plenty of times. He saw what she was pointing at and started counting aloud too. I was reading it to her this morning. It's a very short book, only about 8 pages, and my husband was watching. Everything was normal until my daughter flipped to the first page again with the ducks. My husband and I, at the same time, said, "What the hell?" The duck at the back of the line was facing the other way. I'm not kidding. I've looked at these ducks so many times over the last few days, counting them out God knows how many times. They were all facing the same way. I would literally bet my life on it. At first, I thought I could explain it as an overtired parent getting it wrong. But honestly, I know this book like the back of my hand, so it seems like a massive stretch. And then there's the fact that my husband noticed at the exact same time as me and was weirded out too. We both looked at each other and back at the duck, and we're both in agreement, it's changed. I've read stories like this before and always thought, oh cool, I wish something like this would happen to me. But now that it has, I feel nervous and also a bit crazy. I'm so glad my husband is in the same position as me, though. It confirms that I'm not going mad. Back in junior year of high school when I was 16, my family and I were moving to a new apartment. Near the end of the day, me, my dad, and a family friend, who I didn't really know then and haven't talked to since, were walking from the apartment to the elevator so we could go to the car and grab the last things from it. When my dad stepped into the elevator, the door closed almost immediately. It was specifically weird because the door had only been opened for a couple of seconds, and it closed way faster than I'd ever seen an elevator door close before or since. The door wouldn't open, so we're all confused. We're talking to Dad. He can hear us, and we can hear him. Then suddenly, mid-sentence, his voice just cuts off entirely, and the door opens. The elevator is just empty. So me and the family friend just sort of stare for a second. I step in and look around. No sign of Dad, I step back out of the elevator, and immediately the doors close again. Then they reopen. And Dad's just standing in the middle of the elevator, looking dumbfounded. So we ask him what happened. He explains that after the elevator door closed, at one point, he stopped hearing us, and the elevator went up. Then it just stopped, and he heard what seemed to be wild animals he couldn't quite identify and the sound of scratching on the door. This felt like it lasted around 5 minutes to him before suddenly the elevator door opened without the elevator ever feeling like it went back down. We lived there for over a year. We never did figure out what happened, and the elevator never did that again. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.